Hey listeners, we want to invite you to an event we are having on Thursday, March 20th from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. at our office located at Hybrid Medical Solution, 9325 Glades Road, Suite 208 in Boca Raton, Florida. We will be discussing Core Restore Detox with our functional medicine consultant, Remy McClellan, natural weight loss options, and free demos of our M Suite. And lots of raffle prizes to give away, so please come check us out. Call our office to reserve your spot at 561-898-0020. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Hybrid Healing Hour. Today we're going to be discussing Ayurvedic medicine with a very special guest, Shivani Gupta. Hi Shivani.
Hi.
Thank you for coming on today. And I am so excited to learn about this. I think there's so many people out there who are not aware of what Ayurveda is. And I recently have learned about it, even though, I work with an Indian doctor.
Who knows very little about Ayurvedic medicine. And I'm embarrassed about that because it's been around for 5,000 years, right?
Yep.
And it's something you would think I should know something about, but I'm happy to learn.
Right.
Nice. Awesome.
I'd love for you to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you, how you got to where you are today, and then I want to dive right in.
Perfect. And I think you might already know so much because it's infused into our Indian lifestyle, which is great.
True.
So many aspects of our food and our cooking are already built from Ayurveda. So just to introduce myself, I'm Dr. Shivani Gupta. I'm an Ayurvedic practitioner. I did my master's in Ayurvedic sciences and my PhD dissertation on turmeric. So I'm a very big fan of what Ayurveda can give us for our health, and then equally passionate about how we can pull those super spices in as superfoods to create tremendous shift in the body. So it's been 10 years of studying with turmeric, applying it to people's lives, and then seeing the benefits that they've gotten from it. And I have a Hay House book coming out January 2026 on inflammation in Ayurveda. So my whole life is orienting towards that, what that's going to look like. I'm just finishing it now and putting my final bits into that book. And so my job is to host a great podcast, teach about Ayurveda online, and then write books and run my supplement company. So that's what I do the majority of the time. And what I love is Ayurveda is an entire system of health, healing, and medicine from India that's over 5,000 years old. And within that system, we teach so many things that are now considered new modern wellness techniques and tools.
Right, or biohacking, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like I was kind of seeing the overlap when I'm like, wait a minute, I already tried to incorporate a few of these things and for longevity, and I'm like, wait, so I guess I am doing some Ayurveda.
Yes,
so,
exactly.
Yeah, so please, I'm so excited to learn that.
One of the things that we tell our patients is that modern Western medicine is great at treating acute conditions,
Right.
and it's not so great at treating chronic conditions, whereas Ayurveda has been treating chronic conditions.
True, because it's an entire lifestyle. It's a preventive way of life that you can build into your life. So we teach a lot about circadian rhythm and how that rhythm that you build in connection with nature, whether it's your seasonality of your 4 seasons of the year or your daily circadian rhythm, you can build an entirely new way of life that's supportive to your body as opposed to swimming uphill and always battling with your health and your body.
And we're talking about just as little as the sun up and the sun down.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. So many of us will wake up in the morning, we'll just stay in bed on social media and not rise with the sun. And so we're not giving our body sleep pressure. We're not giving our body the cues it needs. And then throughout the day, we might be eating at off times. In Ayurveda, we teach that 10 to 2 is when the sun is highest in the sky. And that's when you have the most fire, energy, and support for your digestion. So your biggest meal of the day should happen between 10 and 2. Right around high noon.
Right.
And so many of us are like, oh, I'm an intermittent faster. I'm going to have my first meal at 2. Like we really mess around with a lot of these things. And that might not be right for all of us. We can have different choices there. So it's one of those things where Ayurveda says, start in the morning, have a small meal, have that big meal at the middle of the day, have your dinner at the end of the day. You can play with that a bit. And then in the evening when the sun sets, that is your time. Let go of the work, the blue light work we're doing that's damaging our sleep. And we teach 10 to 2 on the circadian clock is the most important time to sleep. And that time before midnight is 3 times more important than the sleep we get after midnight. And so many of us push our sleep times past 11, which is so detrimental. And so that window you have Pitta fire, we call it Pitta. And that fire is there to help clear and clean out everything and rejuvenate and heal us.
Wow. Amazing. And I mean, I wear the Aura ring. And so it's funny, I can see my circadian rhythm is spot on of what I've always known about myself, and his is different, and he wears the Oura ring, and I already know his circadian rhythm is different, right? And but I know also you're right about the sleep. My deep sleep, I always hit the deep sleep in the first half of the night, and that goes when I look at all my patients' Oura ring data as well. That's what I see. So that makes sense. That's the most important time. Your circadian rhythm.
Right. But so many of us will say, I've got work to do. I've got projects. I did it last night. I went to bed at 11:47 and I thought, oh my God, you teach this. Like, you know that you cannot do this. But sometimes we have big deadlines and the holidays are coming and we're going to push our sleep. So I just try to go 3-4 with it, or 2-7. 3 days a week, I can cheat and push things a little, and 4 days I'm excellent. Or 5 days a week be awesome. Maybe the weekend we push things. Yep. But try to really figure out what's that balance, because that balance is going to directly reflect in your health.
And so many people believe that it's the number of hours you get. And they think, well, if I go to sleep at 1 o'clock and I just wake up at 10 o'clock, it's fine. It's the same. And it's not the same.
No, it's not.
It's really not, unless you know that you're that circadian rhythm type,
right.
you know, that. But a lot of people are not.
Yeah, most people aren't.
Right. Most people actually, and I read a lot about that, about sleep cycles, and it is, a lot of people are more the morning risers. Right. And so interesting. So, I mean, we've already jumped right in, and I love it. But I want to know a little bit more about what does Ayurveda mean?
The Ayurveda means the science of life. So it's literally the study of life, the study of understanding how this life should be lived. And so it's interesting, someone asked me recently, is Ayurveda spiritual? And I said, yes, actually. It's body, mind, and spirit coming into alignment. And so the idea is, if you can get your body healthy and in the right vibration and everything working properly, which I find pretty hard in modern day times, but let's say we can get the body really optimized. And I know that's what you guys do in your practice. So when you help us get epically optimized, then mind, we've got to work on clearing our own traumas, our own past stuff, doing the work, personal development, therapy, whatever we need, but getting our mind straight and our mindset straight. Then we can have that access to our spiritual joy and health and happiness. So I really think of it as vibrant health. Like, building that vibrant health that you want is a conscious, intentional choice. And Ayurveda gives you a whole plethora of tools to get there. Because we talk about your dosha, or your individual mind-body constitution. We talk about the sattvic diet, a diet that's yogic and pure and fresh and about nutrient density, nutrient variety.
Ayurveda, you mean not the super ultra processed foods out there in this world, like McDonald's and packaged ingredients
trash.
On the grocery store shelves?
Of course not. Okay. Like, Ayurveda says, just live the opposite of what modern day time is trying to sell you right now and package to you. We teach about gut health and how gut health is the center of all health. So it's really cool that 5,000 years ago, Ayurveda already knew gut health is brain health, gut health is mood, gut health is immunity. And so we have a profound toolkit around optimizing gut from a number of different directions, especially using spices. And then we talk about sleep circadian rhythm, and then we have daily self-care rituals that I love that are detoxing to the body that you can use to hold your circadian rhythm, but also stay detoxed throughout the year.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow. And tell us more about, like, the purpose of Ayurveda. Is it longevity, or what would you say it is?
I mean, truly that word is what it's about. Like, now we use that word longevity. It's anti-aging. It's truly the practice of keeping yourself healthy and pure so you can live out your dharma, or your life purpose.
Okay.
Whether you're meant to be here for 100 years or 50 or 20, it's really about how do you live your best life clean and healthy so you can be at the right vibration and state of mind to do your best work. So I know for myself, when I'm healthy and feeling great, I'm ready to change the world, and I know I can impact millions. And then the minute that shifts, I'm thrown like askew a bit with my health, then I've got to stop, pause, handle my one little body myself, and then I can get back out there.
I love it.
So Ayurveda is teaching us how to really shift into being that most optimal being.
It sounds like
longevity.
Like different dimensions.
Yeah.
In a sense.
Or balance, just being balanced.
Yeah, it's both, really.
Can you dive into, you mentioned the doshas, right? So I heard there's like 5 elements, there's 3 doshas. Like, can you kind of talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so in Ayurveda, we take the 5 elements, ether, air, fire, water, and earth. And those 5 elements combine into these different things we call doshas. Your dosha is your mind-body constitution, and you're born with your original dosha. And then as life goes on, different traumas, different big shifts can happen for you, and you can become imbalanced from your main dosha. So a lot of people who find me say, I just don't feel like myself in my body. I'm feeling heavier or I'm feeling sluggish. This body is nothing like the body I lived with decades ago, and I want to feel like that again. And I'm sure you guys have seen that in your practice where people are like, I just don't want to feel like this anymore. And that oftentimes is a doshic shift. And so what we teach is Vata, we pronounce it here in the West, Vata, but the Vata dosha is air and ether. So this is someone who's predominantly dominated by those traits, constantly in motion. This is someone who's thin and wiry. This is someone who's got like longer features, maybe an oval face. They have thin, brittle hair. They tend to be taller or shorter than anyone in their demographic. They tend to have a mind that goes 1,000,000 miles a minute. So when I sit with a Vata, I'm like, oh my God, y'all think and talk real fast compared to my dosha. I'm a Pitta. And a Vata person will have certain tendencies. So they're going to have a tendency towards anxiety, towards not finishing what they start. They're going to have a tendency towards poor sleep, disrupted sleep because of that mind that goes too fast. They're going to have a tendency towards constipation and dryness type issues in the gut. So we have to look at a Vata and say, okay, are you a balanced, healthy Vata who's optimized, or are you struggling with all those issues? And let's get you support so you're more balanced. And you can have a primary and you can have a secondary dosha. And then you have Pitta. Pitta is more fire with some water. So a Pitta person's more medium-bodied. They have a reddish glow to them. They tend to like be reddish, or they have reddish hair. They have early graying. This is someone who's not on the skinny side like the Vata, and they're not on the heavy, strong, like sturdy side like a Kapha. They're right in the middle. Tendency towards inflammation. They're like the fire element. So a Pitta is a go-getter, ambitious, entrepreneurial person, but their tendency is to explode or have meltdowns like a volcano. So when they get overheated, they're not managed well, and they kind of explode on their relationships around them, or they get burnt out. So all the words that describe fire happens to a Pitta person. So you have to manage that carefully. So I'm a Pitta, and I guide all my Pittas. Like, sweet foods calm us down and reduce anxiety. That's why we are constantly reaching for sugar. So can you change that sugar for coconut water, for water with electrolytes? Like, can we reach for the healthier choice here so we're not reaching for those tools just to calm our systems down?
Right.
And then Pitta people have a tendency towards inflammatory issues because we're just so fiery. We've got like this fire that's overburning inside of us. And then finally you have Kapha. So a Kapha person is going to be stronger, bigger bodied. They'll have rounder features, rounder face, rounder eyes, curly, oily hair. They're predominantly earth and water. And so they have a tendency towards slower metabolism, more congestion. Anything with like respiratory is usually a problem in the Kapha category. This is someone who's loyal and kind. They're like your grandma. They're that person who loves everyone. It's like the greatest friend you can have who's so giving. So with Kaphas, we have to focus on how do we get them moving in the morning, because they will have a hard time waking up in the morning. Like you said, someone who can sleep till 10 or 12, Kaphas get profound deep sleep and they don't want to rise. And once a Kapha finishes their day and they sit down, they don't want to get up. So when I sit down with those clients, I'm like, once you sit, do you ever get up? They're like, no. I'm like, I know. So just have a really productive day, and when you're done, you're done. And so supporting these different constitutions can be powerful, because people take my dosha quiz and they're like, how did you know that? How did you know all that about me? I'm like, this is ancient wisdom, 5,000 years old. I just get to teach it. So it's cool to see when people align exactly with their dosha.
Do you find that people overlap?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
because I feel like I might have been a little bit of all that.
Yeah. And you can be 3 doshic. You can be balanced in all 3.
Okay.
And you can have tendencies in all 3. It's harder to balance a 3 doshic. My best friend is a 3 doshic, and I'm always like, I can tell you're a Pitta mind. Like, you need to understand how to manage it. So it's fun to kind of see where does someone hold an imbalance if they have all 3. Usually we have a primary and a secondary.
And for our listeners, they can do the dosha quiz online, right?
Yes.
There's plenty of...
I have it on my website at drshivani.com.
Okay, that's
and they
great.
can take it. And it's fun to see, because whatever you have as your primary is like your nature. It's who you are. But sometimes your secondary, like in my case, my secondary is more Vata. So I have to watch it, because in this current day and time of social media, as a lifelong learner, I'll just sit and consume videos and YouTube and content all the time. Yeah. And then my brain's like, can you stop? Like, just, it's enough. So you have to just keep an eye on what is your primary and your secondary, and how do they get imbalanced, and how do you keep them balanced?
If we can just back up for 1 minute, we talked about the 5 elements.
Yes.
I think 4 of them are easy to understand. The one that I have a hard time with is ether. Can you explain ether?
I'm glad
Ether
you're saying
space. So all space, all of universe, all the space that holds all the elements. So it's like that open vastness. And you put vastness with wind, and all you've got is someone who functions like wind. They're just all over the place. Like they're in constant
like a whirlwind.
Motion. Exactly. They're like a whirlwind tornado.
I like how you said that, constant motion.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think of the ADD person, or like you said, the anxious person just can't settle, can't rest, right?
Yeah. And sometimes if you sense it, like they have this tornado energy about them and they want to settle. And so our first tools in Ayurveda are food. Like how do we shift your food to support you? Because a Vata person will do the exact thing that's not good for them. And Pittas too. So a Vata person, I'm pointing as if I have one here, but sometimes I have Vata clients next to me and I'm like, oh my God, that energy is wow. A Vata person will have a tendency to just drink water and tea and coffee all day and just snack and nibble. And they will never sit and eat a real meal. And that's their downfall.
Right.
So their homework is 3 meals a day. Real simple, with an avocado or with a healthy fat.
Well, and it's funny, like you said too, like, how do you say it, Pitta?
Yes.
Okay, so like you say that you crave sweets when you should not. So you have to find what you can do instead. So you're right, like it's food is medicine, and we've preached this before.
Yeah.
You know, you can just changing simple things like that, right?
Right.
And many people have this conception that it's one size fits all and everyone can follow the same diet, and they really can't.
It's true.
And people will come up to us and say, well, my friend did this and they lost weight and I didn't lose anything, or they're feeling better and I'm not feeling any different.
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing, Pitta people, we tend to get hangry. Like we have a voracious appetite. Like we are hungry, and you can't talk to us if we haven't eaten. So I already know every day what my meal times are. Like, okay, I'm leaving all day today. I need my breakfast. I can't leave without it. I've already packed my lunch. I know my dinner time slot, and I know I have to eat at those times, because otherwise everything will go so sideways and I will reach for snacks. And recently I put a CGM on and I saw that. Like I hadn't eaten breakfast, so I just reached for 5 things, ate them, boom, blood sugar went crazy. And I was like, see, you have to pay attention to fueling for what your dosha is. Otherwise your reaction is going to be so negative.
Absolutely.
So we talked about food, and then I like how they break food down into tastes.
Yes.
Right? So there's 6 tastes?
Yes, there are 6 tastes in Ayurveda. So we talk about food as not just food, but the Sattvic diet talks a lot about eating fresh, organic, healthy food. Ayurveda says we shouldn't eat leftovers past 1 day old. We consider that stagnant food or dead food, and lacking prana or any energy force that we need to energize our body and our cells. We teach about cooking food properly, so that's why we have our super spices. So we use a lot of spices like turmeric, ginger, cumin, coriander, fennel. All these great spices are profound in how they impact the body. So cooking with spices alone is a great way to bring more nutrient density. But we teach about nutrient density, nutrient variety, eating seasonally. And I know that sounds like a lot of work, but you can build a rhythm with it. That makes it easier. And the 6 tastes cover the different tastes of our food that we should be incorporating to have a balanced meal. So for example, salty, sweet, we know those. Sour foods like lemon, we know those. Bitter foods, most of us avoid. And we know bitter foods support our digestive enzymes. So a lot of times when we're doing gut microbiome tests on people, the first thing we say is eat more digestive bitters. And so what if we just started getting those from food, eating those like Swiss chard, some of those foods that are bitter that we might not normally reach for, but incorporating them, maybe in a fall soup or something. Then there's astringent foods like pomegranate, parsley. Those foods as well add a balance of flavor to our foods. And then pungent, like onion is very pungent. And so bringing a balance in is important. I find nowadays we are so mono in our diets. Even I do that. I'll be like, I just eat eggs and 1 piece of toast and my salad. Like I'll get very prescribed in the food. And this is just inviting us to come back and bring all those tastes together. And then we teach that certain foods support certain doshas better. So for example, as a Pitta, sweet foods are supportive to me to stay cool. So for example, white rice has a cooling effect inside of us. It's good for Pitta. We have the metabolism normally and the digestive fire to process that. Or coconut water or sweet fruit. Incorporating those can be very beneficial. Like watermelon will be cooling, coconut water is cooling. And then with Vata, they too benefit from sweet foods because it calms down their anxiety. Versus you wouldn't give that to a Kapha person. A Kapha person, you need to get their system moving. So you're going to give them pungent foods, onion, these things to like get their system moving and get them supported. So just switching diet can be very, very powerful. A lot of Kapha people end up eating salads because we all talk about how salads are good and raw is good, but their digestive fire is not as strong. So they actually are better supported if they eat soups and stews and easy to digest foods. And when you switch that little thing for them, all of a sudden they feel way, way, way better.
And when you go to an Indian restaurant, when you leave, there's always a bowl of fennel seed, right? And that's for a reason.
Exactly. They're going to try to help you digest that meal down so you don't leave with heartburn and then hate them and not come back. So I always laugh when I see the fennel seed bowl. But we also teach, let's say you get heartburn in general, carry fennel seeds with you. That's a way to kind of settle down the whole system after a meal.
Now, can you also try to just chew on the, like a lemon rind or a orange peel?
You can. We didn't talk about that as much in Ayurveda, but yes, why not?
Know. Yeah.
You know, we also teach don't have cold water around your meals. And so any Ayurvedic person, if you see in a restaurant, will say, no ice water, please, as if you're about to give us poison. And we're like, no, keep your stuff. Can I have hot water, please, or hot water with lemon? And we'll just sip a little bit, not too much, because we don't want to dilute our digestive enzymes. But certainly you don't want to throw ice water on a digestive fire that you're about to ask to process and assimilate that food.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
I just recently heard somebody say you're not supposed to drink water with your meal.
At all.
Okay.
At all. We teach not at all. So in my house, the kids will be like, we're getting daddy water. And then they won't get me water. And I'm like, of course, please don't. Like I have zero need. And none of you should drink water anyway with your meals. So yeah, our
does
job
that mean
is
you shouldn't drink anything like iced tea or anything with it?
Nothing iced.
Wow.
Yeah. So when I go to events and stuff, I look at them like, no, thank you. I do drink ice water occasionally outside of my meals because it's hot. And I want, if I'm going to take so many things in my water, my minerals and my glutamine and everything, I want it to be a fun drink with my electrolytes. But I would never have ice water near mealtime.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the theory is that there's a fire within all of us, and that campfire that exists is the fire that's going to receive our food, process it, and transform it into all the nutrients we need. Absolutely. And we call that final byproduct ojas. And ojas is this energy, vitality. It's the byproduct of good digestion and good health. So if you are going to eat poor processed garbage foods that have no nutrient value, no ojas will be made, and you'll be feeling fatigued and tired and sluggish, which most of America feels right now, right? And we do too at given points if we travel and eat trash on the road. I do when I travel. It's hard to get organic, fresh, healthy food or good quality homemade food without seed oils and those things. And so our job is then to support the digestion of that food. And that fire wouldn't want ice water or anything cold. And so honoring it as like, if you went camping, you would build a really robust, healthy fire. You'd honor that gut microbiome, diversity, and digestive enzyme support needs to exist. And I know you guys work on that with your patients because nowadays we're all lacking in a gut microbiome that's effective. We're all lacking in digestive enzyme support that we need to process our food properly, which is where I think we suffer the most nowadays in modern day times. And then once we give everything to that fire, we need to only use that fire a few times a day and not over snack and waste the energy of it.
I'm assuming you recommend like fresh herbs or fresh parsley, things like that, right? But what if, is there, I guess, any other ones you recommend that if somebody can't get fresh?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we really love fresh cilantro. We kind of use that across all Indian cooking. But in every Indian household, and it applies to Ayurveda, we have this spice box. And that's like our traditional, what we're going to use for 90% of our dishes. And it's going to have cumin seeds whole. We can take oil, ghee, butter, as we've talked about, and put cumin seeds in there and let them start to pop and release their aroma. And that's when the cumin will start to release its benefits to help us as a pre-digestive for the food we're going to eat. So any lentil or bean we cook, we use two spices, cumin and hing. And so anytime someone's like, oh, I made chili and you're vegetarian, have some. I'm like, no, I'm not touching anyone's chili if you guys don't know the spices it takes to digest that. That's why here in the US, no one wants to eat beans. They think they're hard to digest. But truly, we don't have the spices here or the awareness of these cool spices that'll help us digest that.
And I did not know that. That is very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we just heat those two up in our oil or our butter. Then we start cooking the food. Okay. But like you said, we have a lot of spices. We can use cumin. We can use coriander, which is cilantro seeds, and we grind them in our own blender, so it's like fresh ground. We take red chili powder. Of course, we like things hot and spicy. We take turmeric, which I love. When you take turmeric, always add black pepper or a healthy fat to get the benefits, or you will not get the benefits. It's a hard to use spice in the body. Then we have garam masala. Garam masala is just a mix of spices. It has cinnamon and different spices in there, but it has black pepper. So it was already ready to help that turmeric absorb into the system. And then we have something that's very citrus, like mango powder, or you can use fresh lemon. And that's typically that with salt is what you use in everything. And then you can get fancy and you can use like fennel seeds and mustard seeds and other spices that we use. But those are all dried and they last for years.
Great.
Yeah.
Wow. So I'd like to talk about, I'm assuming that those are like the super herbs we talked about for longevity to help with balancing the body and everything, right?
Yeah.
And it's just as easy as just throwing in, I love cilantro too.
Yes.
And it's funny how some people think it tastes like soap though.
I know.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Yeah. And cilantro is a very good heavy metal detoxer. And we know nowadays supporting detox pathways is so important. So I think of cilantro as like just throw it on everything that we make and add a little more for that benefit.
And also you talked earlier about leftovers, and that's something that we talk to our patients about because we do food sensitivity testing, and a lot of people come back reacting to aspergillus and mold, and we tell them no leftovers.
Wow. Yeah, nothing more than 24 hours. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or like a lot of people don't realize that when some people when you eat meatloaf, like it might actually be like meat that was already left over to make the meatloaf or burgers, right? I always recommend the hand patted burgers if you can, like handmade. But you as a vegetarian wouldn't eat that. So
yeah, but it's so important, this idea of food storage. Ayurveda talked about everything in its purest form. Cook naturally, cook at home. We talked about the mood of the person who's cooking and how that is infused into the food. So in my house, the most important thing that I have is someone who cooks. Because with my schedule and with my husband's crazier schedule, there's no time to cook. So I have someone who's cooking that fresh food according to the diet that I'm prescribing. I can have a dirty house. I can have a lot of other things, but the one thing I need is that food made with love for myself, my husband, and my children. So mood is one thing. Another is the quality of the ingredients. So sourcing well, which nowadays we're pretty lucky because we have Instacart, so I can order Costco Sprouts and these things and get things delivered. Or I found a new website, floridafarmdirect.com, that I found and I use for organic pasture-raised eggs that are local.
Yeah.
So if you can imagine that distance of food coming to us sometimes is quite far.
Yeah.
And then Ayurveda said, store food properly. So I store food in glass Pyrex in my home, never in plastic. When it's cooked, it's put in glass. It's in the fridge in glass. It comes out. It's heated in the toaster oven or on the stove. We don't use the microwave, which causes a huge headache because on the weekends, it's a lot of dishes to do. But I don't want to nuke my food. I want it to stay nutrient dense and healthy. And so I think a lot of the reason we're struggling with our health nowadays is all the little choices along the way that I just named. Each one adds up. And what I like is if you can operationalize some of those, it just becomes your standard process. So my standard of care or standard of management of my home is glass. It's never touch that microwave unless it's someone who really wants to use it, but we don't use it, me and the kids. And then just paying attention to that issue of old food, because that old food isn't going to make you feel good. And so if you can just stay one day old, or if I don't have food, I will go to one of these healthy places we have around here. I'll stop at Living Green or I'll order to go from a healthy place. So we have a lot more options now.
Absolutely.
Which is good.
I know I do the meal prep program because of timing, right?
Yes.
But technically I'm eating leftovers.
Yeah, it happens. So sometimes I go till 2 days, but I just try not to. So that'll happen a lot on a Sunday because we cooked it on Friday and I'm too lazy to cook again on Sunday. So that will happen. But that's 1 day a week out of the 7.
But at least I know what I'm like, but I eat many of the foods we discussed in that. And I know if I cooked, I wouldn't be eating that. Like I'm not going to make Swiss chard. But I know I can get that in my meal prep program. So,
correct.
At the same time, I'm like, you pick and choose your battles. And I think that's something that we all are going to try to do our best.
Totally.
But we have to know what works for us, right?
Yeah. And there are meal prep programs that'll deliver twice a week.
Yes.
So I've
and
used
that's what
them.
I get. Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, thank you. You actually brought so much variety into my life that I never would have had. And it's far better to have meal delivery than me just scrambling and trying to find something on the road.
Exactly.
A lot of times my kids ordered Chipotle drive up after school because we're driving from A to B and we're not going to go home. And I'll end up, they're like, Mommy, we ordered you the chips. And I'm like, oh my God, don't order me the chips. I live for chips and nachos.
I know.
And they know that that's like the one thing that makes Mommy happy. And I'm like,
You're like, thanks, but
I shouldn't eat anything from there. Like I can eat like a salad or something, but limited.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Wow, I think we've touched a lot of ground, and I cannot wait to have you back on. And I think we need to do a podcast completely just on turmeric.
Anytime.
And I'm looking forward to that already.
For sure.
But we touched a lot on circadian rhythm, how important that is. And I know we probably could even have dived deeper into that.
Yes.
So maybe on the next time.
Yeah.
And then food, always, we love talking about food and gut health.
Absolutely. Anytime. I love talking about turmeric. Turmeric to me is that one spice that can do so much for our health as an anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, anti-obesity. It's so supportive of metabolic health. So I can come on anytime for that.
Awesome.
And again, we'll have to talk about what good quality turmeric is versus just everyday
Yes.
turmeric
Totally.
capsules.
Food turmeric versus supplement turmeric is a completely different ballgame.
Yeah.
Would you be able to tell our audience how they can find you and on social media, your website, everything?
Sure. So my website is drshivani.com. It's drshivani.com. And I'm at dr.shivani Gupta on Instagram and all my social channels. And I have the Fusionary Health podcast where Dr. Brian has been on. And I love having doctors on to talk about every area of medicine and prevention that we can use to shift our health. So thank you.
I love it. And I'll put everything in the show notes as well.
Perfect.
But thank you for coming on today.
Thank you.
The information contained in this podcast is provided for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended for the purposes of diagnosing, curing, treating, or preventing any disease. This podcast is provided on the understanding that it does not constitute medical or other professional advice or services. Before using any products or services referenced on this podcast, consult with your healthcare provider, carefully read all labels, and heed all directions and cautions that accompany the products. Information found or received through the podcast should not be used in place of a consultation or advice from a healthcare provider. If you suspect you have a medical problem or should you have any healthcare questions, please promptly call or see your healthcare provider. This podcast, including Dr. Brian Marias, Deanna Weilbacher, and Hybrid Medical Solution, do not claim responsibility for any adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for any statements made by the guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements and advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referenced.
If you would like to submit any questions or if you have any topics you would be interested in hearing about on future episodes, please contact us through our website, www.hybridmedicalsolution.com. That is solution with no S at the end. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook, all under Hybrid Medical Solution.